They feed off of hatred, fear, division, and control. They want this low vibration, negative energy force. That's their energy source. That's what they feed off of. And that's what they're trying to make all of us, because what they fear the most is the strength of the human spirit and the power of love.
First, let me thank all of the new subscribers. We've watched your numbers come in for the past couple of weeks, and it's amazing. We're very, very happy to have you. We couldn't do this without you. You are our energy. Thank you very much. Now, most of our podcasts are pretty light. We like to talk about funny things too. But mainly, this is a podcast about people and their work. And we know that everyone has a story, whether it's a plumber, a politician. Everybody has a very interesting story. This one goes pretty dark. As anyone knows who are familiar with the story of Cathy O'Brien, it's very depressing and very dark. But like the people in Germany after World War II would have to own up to the things that have happened, where maybe they didn't want to admit that it really happened. Maybe they didn't want to be honest with themselves that it really happened. This is kind of the crisis with this story. In America, we have to own up to the fact that we're not perfect. And sometimes things get out of control. Somebody has a good idea for benevolent purposes, and it gets hijacked into destructive and demonic purposes. But the story has a happy ending, and I think you're really going to enjoy this. I understand that recently you've met Trump, and I'm kind of curious what he's like in person and how that came to be.
It was an amazing experience for sure. And I feel so fortunate to have had it, because it's always good to see someone eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul. It makes a big difference. And so in October, I was touring Florida for 3 weeks with my friend Roseanne Barr, and we went to Club 47.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump.
Where President Trump was speaking, and we went to Mar-a-Lago, and it was at Mar-a-Lago I was able to meet him and speak with him, and wow, it was just a phenomenal experience. Exactly what I expected. The sense of the vastness of intelligence, is just so encouraging. The confidence and energy that he exudes is very uplifting, and just that soulfulness that accompanies it, his genuine care, is exactly, I think, we all are needing now in a position of leadership while we do our part, because we got to get rid of this dark cabal, this oversized, overreaching government that has been in place for so long. And this time, when President Trump goes back in, it's important that we all do our part, because the swamp can't be drained by one person from the top down. It has to be drained from the bottom up by all of us, doing our part, doing our thing. So I'm
definitely curious to know what we can do, because Greg and I were talking a while ago, and I'm just like, I don't know what the average person could do about, the monetary system and things like that. So I will be curious to know. But really quick, did you have a sit down with Trump, or is it just kind of like at a group of people, or did you I mean, did he know who you were? I mean, I'm kind of curious how
Well,
that conversation came about.
yes, and I'm excited. Like his ICE director Tom Holman is very amazing person too, and very concerned about the whole human trafficking and child sex trafficking
Hmm.
aspect of things and what can be done there. So I'm treated with a great deal of respect for having spoke out for 35 years on that issue, and I'm recognized for doing so. So that's it's nice after all these years to have my voice not only heard but treated with so much respect.
Yeah,
Can
it's
I just
incredible.
jump in about Trump? You said that he has soul, and that kind of struck a nerve with me because I've watched a number of your things, and you always talk about solutions. So
Yeah.
I know that's an important word in your vernacular, but also everybody I've ever heard that has seen Trump personally has pretty much said the same thing, that he's very personable, just everything exact opposite of what he's portrayed as by the media.
Oh,
And
for sure, the opposite of what the media says, but also completely different than any political person in politics that I've encountered. You know, I mean, he's
just not phony.
his integrity is absolute, and I think that's one of the most important things that all of us can gain from that. Is he cannot be compromised, and for that reason, um, that's important for all of us, because so many politicians are either going to be blackmailed, coerced, compromised, their family lives threatened, they're paid off in some way, but there is nothing that President Trump can be compromised on something like that, because his integrity has been so strong that that has been used on a White House Pentagon level under MK Ultra mind control. I know that the perpetrators feared him then, because he already vehemently opposed human trafficking, MK Ultra mind control, the drug trafficking across our open borders, because they were already flung open back then for the groundwork of NAFTA. And since he opposed it so vehemently, and was aware of it. Knowledge is our defense against mind control. He definitely had that knowledge. He was not going to be compromised. And for that reason, the perpetrators that I was exposed to feared him back then. And that's a powerful statement coming forward after all those years to finally meet him was a very profound experience for me on many levels, you know. And I think it's important that we understand that when someone is that soulful and intelligence and stuff, they're still human beings, you know. And it's up to us to discern information. I don't agree with every single thing President Trump says or does, but I have the free will, free thought to choose what, you know, I comply with, and research everything further to see what is.
Yeah.
And I think we should all be encouraged to do that. And I think that was an important message that he had in his administration, was definitely trying to get people to think free, think for themselves, research further, open their eyes to the reality of what in the world is going on. And that's an amazing gift in itself. It's something we all need to do.
Now,
Exactly. And I'd
yeah,
like
go ahead,
to,
John.
one
Sorry.
sec. I read somewhere there's 80,000 unaccompanied minors that came across the border that are unaccounted for at present, and the numbers are increasing. And the media does not report anything negative against the current administration. It's just appalling to me.
It is.
I mean,
Is there still MK
80,000
Ultra stuff going on
kids.
at the border? That's what I was wondering. I'm sorry, John.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to
I
interrupt.
just wanted to address that current
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, the media is so controlled, follow the money, and it goes to the same handful of puppet masters who are ushering in what Adolf Hitler, George Bush, and Joe Biden termed the New World Order. this great reset, whatever they want to call it. It's a slave society agenda. And it's where a handful of big guys make all the money, and we do all the work. But follow the money, and the money goes straight to the handful of puppet masters up at the top. They're controlling our information, and that's something. Another reason why we need to research further for ourselves, because mind control is a sliding scale from the kind of robotic, torturous MK Ultra mind control that I experienced on a White House Pentagon level to information control, because we all formulate our thoughts, our opinions, and ultimately our actions based on what we know. And we need to know that knowledge base has been deliberately altered for a long, long time. And the controlled media is very much a part of controlling our knowledge base, as is the education system that's indoctrinating our children today.
Same thing with the social media. It's easier to actually accomplish the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Social media can be used as a defense mechanism too. We can actually kind of share information on our own around all
now that
too.
Musk bought Twitter.
That helps, yes. So Cathy, in 2016, when Trump, was just getting into the White House and all of that, I was very curious. I kind of went to your website. I was very curious to know what you were thinking then. And I imagine, because you had always said in all your writings, there is no left, right. There's only, them. And they kind of switch with the change of the winds. But Trump seemed different to me, and I was very unsure. Of course, I bought into, I'm a product of society too. So I bought into everything that they had said about him, that he was a racist. But I was kind of watching on the other side going, something's wrong here. Something's different. And I know you must have some point kind of came to understand that Trump may not be exactly with the establishment. When did you realize that? Or you believe that now, so yeah.
Yeah, well, I had been exposed to that in the 80s while I was working under MK Ultra mind control, carrying out the bidding of these perpetrators, and knowing that they were scared of him then was very telling, because there weren't very many people they were scared of. They're very arrogant and overconfident. Just know they have an ability to control everyone by some means or another, but they could not do that with him. So that was amazing in itself. But around 2015, when he started to run for office, since Mark Phillips and I had been speaking out for over 35 years on this dark cabal, this mind control agenda being imposed on the global population, we were speaking out worldwide, and new people were waking up. The Great Awakening was happening. It has been happening for many years. We're seeing it now because it's reached such a critical mass. And so by the time 2016 rolled around, it's in my 1995 testimony for Congress. Hillary Clinton was to usher in the New World Order. They were keeping it in the Bush-Clinton dynasties until Hillary ushered it in. It was so profound to me to finally see the positive change that Mark and I had been working towards for over 35 years. Finally happened, that many people were awake and aware 2016 that we overrode that algorithm.
And the relentless attack on him when he got in at 2016, it was just ridiculous. I mean, the phony Russian stuff, it's been proven it was not, and they pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And that lends credence to anybody that was a skeptic to say, well, why did they make up all this stuff about him, relentlessly lie to people? And if they, even a moderate, even a left-leaning moderate could see that this is no longer a conspiracy. This is blatant.
No longer a theory. Yeah.
Assassination.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were so frantic, they went all in and manipulated the minds of the population. Ultimately, it resulted in even more people waking up now.
Right.
But there was that period of time where the people were scared. The people were in a fear mode. And when we're in fear, our brains freeze in fright and leave the subconscious mind wide open to being easily led and manipulated, especially if there's a repetitive narrative through the controlled media. And that's what we all got bombarded with, was social distance, mask up, get the injection, over and over and over, whether it was television or we were on the internet, or if we walked into a grocery store, it was still over the intercom system to mask up, get the injection, social distance,
And recently,
So
Trump
people.
spoke at, I think it was in Ohio, and he was talking about China building EV factories in Mexico. And he said, well, if I'm not, and I'll do 100% tariffs on this, I'm shutting this down. And if I don't get in, it's going to be a bloodbath. And he was speaking to the automobile manufacturer, and relentlessly, it was all over the news. They're all saying, Trump said bloodbath if he's not elected.
Yeah.
Omitted blatantly. And even Scarborough, the guy that used to live in Florida, he's saying that he doubled down on it and said, no, this is ridiculous. It's a dog whistle. We know what he meant. It's like insane. It's to the point where it's like, have a little bit more tact at least. This is, and then you see the puppets, like you said, on social media. I got people that are blindly in a tribe this way or blindly in a tribe this way. And they ideologically align with that. And they only parrot the lie. And if you even say anything, boom, you're banned, you're done. So
there's a bunch of memes coming out.
It's weird.
There's a bunch of memes coming out talking about just that very thing. And they're showing these liberals who use the term bloodbath only in the opposite way, just a few years ago. So there's quite a few memes like that.
But that's exactly what she alluded to, the mind control over and over and over.
No, I'm just saying people making fun of it. And that's the going the other way, making fun of it is a healthy thing.
I really think people started reevaluating the information and looking at it further. We've reached that point. So I don't think they're going to get very far with any more of those little bloodbath attempts and the manipulations like that. The only ones they're going to reach are the same little programmed ones that march to the New World Orders and march to Ukraine or march to whatever they're told to at the moment, and that's about it. But the rest of the people are just waking up and thinking free, and more people are joining the free thought movement. That's a very strong view that I'm excited to see happening.
Yes, Cathy. So you had said that they were pushing fear and fear and fear, and that also kind of induces focus, doesn't it? And when the worst thing that they could do is lock everyone into their own homes so they can sit there and research this information for themselves. It was like the Great Awakening was an effect of the exact opposite of what they wanted to do. It seems that's when everyone's eyes were open, to me.
Yes, they were so freaked out. They made big mistakes because they were frantic. And the silliest thing they did was have a shelter at home, because when we break our routine patterns, it opens neuron pathways in the brain. They're needing to shut those neuron pathways down. That's what mind control is. It shuts down neuron pathways in the brain. And when we sheltered at home and broke our routine patterns, we had to think in new ways, and having to think in new ways opens those. Really messed up with that one. It's like if you park your car in the same place every day, and then you park it someplace else one day, you got to think a minute and look for it. It's not much, but it still forces you to think. And if you're forced to think, that gets the brain firing. And that was their big mistake. And I laughed about that as soon as they did it. It's like, oh, they just made a horrible.
They dug their own grave.
Yes, and especially with the educational system, with the Zoom meetings and education online, people are like, what are you saying? What are you teaching my children?
Yeah, everything became obvious.
Yeah.
Now, how did you meet Roseanne Barr?
I met Roseanne in 2008 at an event in Hollywood. We were exposing the child sex trafficking in Hollywood at the time, MK Ultra mind control and healing from it. And so we met there and became instant friends. We were sharing um, the same just need to get the information out on what was happening to the children, and that healing is possible. That's a very important message, because they don't want people to know that we have it within us to heal. They don't want people to remember that we have the power. We don't have to look outside ourselves to big government, big pharma, big cult religion, big tech. We don't have to look outside ourselves for them to tell us how to live our lives. We have all the power. And the perpetrators who are ushering in the slave society agenda only have as much power as we give them or let them steal. So that was a great message that Roseanne and I were sharing back then. We're still sharing it today, every chance that we get together. And we just really have a deep, 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 profound friendship and understanding.
I always get a kick out of.
Really quick,
I always
do
get
you have, or really quick, do you know what happened to her second show? That was kind of, so it was after you were friends with her. They started, and I was really excited because I loved the Roseanne show, and all of a sudden she was coming back with it, and then it dissolved, and there was infighting with the actors. Do you know anything about that?
And I know a lot about that. And it's
Okay.
something really that started with her first show too, because she was exposing Disney in a lot of ways.
Okay.
But in the original series, she exposed mind control. She exposed a whole lot of really pertinent issues that needed to be addressed. So the perpetrators already didn't like her and were trying to silence her and everything else back then. The time she came out, and she came out pro President Trump. That was
Yeah,
like
I remember that.
the last straw. But it was also ABC, and ABC was bought by Disney. And Disney had a very, very, very serious issue with Roseanne for exposing mind control and their pedophile subliminals and network, and their
It was
whole
extremely successful show for them.
Yeah.
For them to cancel it the way they did was bizarre from a financial perspective.
It's got to be more about
Now,
something other than money,
I think the catalyst, at least the catalyst from the narrative of the media, was a couple tweets she made about a cabinet secretary or something, and they misconstrued that tweet. I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but it was, to me, they wanted to snuff her out from, and anybody that supports Trump, they want to snuff out. But if you don't, let's say like Howard Stern or anybody like that, if say, I hate Trump, I love the vaccine, then you get an exemption from anything you've done. You could wear blackface as he did. You could be misogynistic as Stern is, and you get a complete pass. So, and Kimmel did the same thing. He had a history of misogynistic behavior, blackface, everything else, blatantly racist. But as long as you rah this, and one side, you get a shield. It's obvious. Anybody else would have been buried.
Yep.
But
what her tweet was really about was the Valerie Jarrett thing, the power that was going on in the Obama administration that was, bringing about the new world order, and and the horrible crimes against humanity that were going on. And it was quite a clever expose. Well, apparently it hit too close to home and named someone who was an extreme power behind Obama. And so they went after her on that and made it up to be racist, when in fact, their greatest fear of Roseanne is her uniting people like she does. She deals with every issue. She was dealing with every issue in her, news show and crossing all social boundaries and showing
Yes,
how
I
people
remember.
can still live
100%.
together. Yeah, so that make her racist to try to make her divisive when that is the last thing she is. She is such a loving spirit of and wanting people united and peaceful. She's all about that. So it didn't make any sense. But again, what they're doing with President Trump in the media too doesn't make any sense either. So, they go after, they just can make up anything they want.
Yeah. Greg, you had a
Yes.
question, didn't you?
Yes. I was just curious. Now, you said that you met Roseanne in 2008, and that is years before Trump came onto the scene.
Right.
That's years before the Valerie Jarrett thing. That's when she was still a mainstream star. And yet, apparently, she was just as adamant even then about her belief about, I guess, sexual stuff in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. So was she red pilled even before in the 80s? I mean, when did she, or don't you know? I'm just curious to know her history, and I don't expect you to know all of it, but
yeah.
as far as you know, she was always this way.
She has just been brilliant with a purposeful life, I think, is a good way to look at it. And she lived that purpose well and against the odds because she had a
That's
really
what I'm
hard
wondering. How
time
did she
getting
get
out.
to be that way in the first place? How did she get to be famous if she was, even from the get-go, she was already kind of a rebel and kind of somebody that they don't like, and yet she got to be very famous, so I'm just curious how that happened. But anyway, that's maybe a topic for another time.
I think she just snuck her way in because she was popular and it brought in money. And once her foot was in the door, she didn't stop.
Yeah.
So there are several people like that in Hollywood. She's not the only one. There's good people everywhere trying to make a difference right where they're at.
Right.
Whether it's in the intelligence community or within the corrupted child protective services. There's people doing what they can where they are, and there's a whole lot of people doing it. So the good people are the majority. We just don't hear it in the news.
That makes me curious what other people in Hollywood that you personally know. I mean, I think of Corey Feldman. I think of, so obviously a bunch of people that have been abused and whatever. Do you know these people personally? Or Isaac Cappy as another one? I mean, are these people that you knew?
Yeah, it's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Well, I've spoke with Corey Feldman, and there are other people in the entertainment industries, across the board that I've met, and I know there's good people doing what they can. I see people coming out of the entertainment industry screaming MK Ultra, and only to be pulled back in because people need to heal for this go. Otherwise, they can be triggered back in. And if they speak out too soon without identifying all their abusers, one of those abusers can get hold of them. So I'm very, very fortunate that that intelligence insider Mark Phillips, who is working the highest levels of intelligence mind sciences to preserve the sanctity of free thought, is the one who lifted my daughter and me right out of the Washington, D.C. human trafficking swamp and handed me keys to my mind. And those keys are our birthright information. It's our defense against mind control. It's how we reclaim and retain our free thought. It's innate within us, but we forgot. Again, we forgot our own power because we've been conditioned for generations to look outside ourselves to authority, to look outside ourselves to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult religion. And when in fact, we have those answers within. And Mark reminded me of that. He reminded me that I had that power. And I applied those methods that he taught me and healed from within myself. Mark did not deprogram me. He just reminded me how I could reclaim my own power and supported me throughout and kept me safe and had the information validated by clean members of intelligence and law enforcement, and he was just everything. He had just such an amazing person, but I'm so fortunate to have healed. And then it was love for my daughter that compelled me to start speaking out. And love is the most powerful force in the universe. It wasn't fear, bitterness, and hatred for my abusers. It was love for my daughter that gave me voice. So that made all the difference. Healing from within, being motivated by love, and speaking out in 1990, before people even knew there was a swamp in Washington, D.C., before people knew what mind control was, what human trafficking was, that child sex trafficking was used as a blackmail operation, before they knew that the borders were open to drug and human. But I mean, that was so early on to be speaking out. And still, I was able to have voice and not be stopped, because I was fully healed by healing from within and opening the neuron pathways in my brain, and healing on that level. I could not be triggered. And that's the important thing. We all need to learn the ins and outs of our own mind, understand our mind-brain function, so that we can have our defense against mind manipulation, so that we're not triggered by what is us through the controlled media, so that we don't even cave in to the repetitive narrative, and it's we just need to remember who we are and why we're here. And it begins with free thought.
I've listened to a number of your works, and you talk about when you get to be about the age 30, that seems to be a time when memories come back. And you're, I guess, in that sense, you're most vulnerable. And that was the time in your life when they wanted you dead. And so
Absolutely.
I just observing, and I know you haven't met Corey Feldman, but he was about 30 when he started coming out and saying all of these horrible things. And it just makes me think, oh my gosh, he was at that vulnerable time that you were talking about. And I know you don't know him, but and now lately, last several years, we never hear from him anymore.
And the other Corey as well.
Well, the other Corey was killed. I forgot his last name. That was 2011, I think. Haynes, is it? So I don't know. It's just sad to hear that. I prayed for him a lot.
It really is. It's something that happens. It's electrochemical changes happen in the brain. And when that happens, it opens those neuron pathways, and memory, compartmentalized, repressed memory that trauma has caused and repressed so deep in the brain, starts to open up, and it starts to leak memory. So that's very often when people start remembering childhood abuse or whatever.
And the abusers know this too. They know that age 30 is the time when they need to be extra careful about the ones they abused.
Yes, and then you get people who are obviously MK Ultra, like Disney, Britney Spears. When she turned 30 and shaved her head and was just screaming out for help, and they just reprogrammed her and did that numerous times, and she just has almost broke free and then is brought back. Almost, it's so hard to see that. It's like if only someone could, show her that it's within her to heal from within.
Only she could get together with you.
That hurt.
Well, and that's
she
what's
would just go
to
to my website, and anybody go to my website at trance-formation.com and get PTSD Time to Heal. I posted it there when mind control masked as a virus was unleashed on the global population, because I knew people would need that information to understand their mind-brain function, because the methods that Mark taught me for healing are very easy to self-apply because they're innate to us all, and if people could just know that, if I could get the information out there far enough without being censored and held back, we'd be able to help more people could help themselves with that information.
I just listened to your book.
Put that in the
I'd like to get the clip. Well, I'd like to get the clip because it's going to start to help people to understand how Mark came to understand all of this, because otherwise none of this would be happening if he didn't come to this understanding. So let me share that link really quick, or that video.
This was in charge of maintaining, not the physical maintenance. I had an actual, real, honest-to-God engineer with me at all times. But I worked in mental institutions, both state and federal. I worked in the state and federal prison systems, worked on NASA sites, and was working to just simply guard the integrity of certain file tapes and films. Those file tapes and films were on what we called behavioral modification projects. The scientists that I knew, some of them admittedly were former admitted Nazis, but they were just doing what they liked to do, and what I saw them doing in the 60s and 70s, I truly believed then, and I truly believe it now, was benevolent for society. You know, anything that could be used for positive can also be used for negative. A knife, for instance, is a device that allows us to use it as a tool or a weapon. Mind control, the one I was seeing, the behavioral modification programs, particularly in the prison systems and in the hospitals, the people were either incorrigible, they had extreme, we're talking the Charlie Manson types. These people had extreme social problems, put it mildly. They had behavioral problems. Some of them were cannibals. Some of them were serial killers. Some of them weren't any of those things, but they could not function in society. And what I was seeing were these people being free of those extreme mental bonds. People were recovering from the unrecoverable. People were becoming functional when they absolutely were non-functional. So myself and the scientists that I was rubbing elbows with, we all believed that this was one of the greatest opportunities for emptying out our prisons, for emptying out our mental institutions by the year 2000. We literally were working towards that goal.
All right. So what about that? I mean, obviously people tend to throw all of the negative into, action first. But his research and what he believed he's working with was really to help people to recover from, violent behaviors on that. So, and he didn't see the difference between behavior modification and mind control. Your thoughts on that?
From my point of view, it's understanding the mind-brain function. Mark was studying that and working at the War College Psychological Warfare Division, and at the same time, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino was there, and they were enemies right from the get-go.
Dr. Aquino, the high priest of the Church of Set.
Temple of Set.
Temple of Set, also a colonel, interestingly enough, in the United States Army. What is it, this Satanism?
I think that there is some confusion tonight because this same term means something different to Satanists than it does to Christians in the United States. By our own standards, the people who you've shown in these film clips would not be Satanists, either present or in the past. Rather, they would be the failures of a conventional religion.
I appreciate your opinion. What is it, sir, then? What is Satanism?
Well, originally the Church of Satan, when it was founded, was composed not of people with a hatred for Christianity, but of people who, by and large, were agnostics and atheists, because they felt that the institutions which had arisen around Christianity had failed in their moral commitment. So Satanism itself became an emphasis on rational self-interest and on taking responsibility for your own intellectual and ethical decisions.
Rational self-interest, you call it?
Yes.
And of course, Michael Aquino was my primary MK Ultra mind control programmer. And he used mind control in the military, and the trauma base was satanic in nature. So the formula for mind control is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, or the world. And it was found through the Hitler-Himmler research that trauma is the basis of it. There's no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while their brain is still forming. Equally as horrific on the human mind is satanic ritual abuse, because the blood traumas are so absolutely horrific. So that's what Michael Aquino was working on, and Mark was livid because he was working on, you know, as he was even saying there, preserving the sanctity of free thought, reclaiming free thought, free will, soul expression, because that's it's such an important aspect of things. But there's good and bad in everything. And when we look at that and consider that aspect of things, we need to evaluate for ourselves, you know, okay, how are things really being used and what is being done? So, yeah, Mark always would say too, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And when we consider that, wow, you know, how ridiculous is war then? Ultimately, there's a lack of communication that's going on. And if we would all just, you know, talk with each other and learn from differences rather than fight over differences, we would all stand to win.
Yeah, and then there was this other thing that happened to him where the government started to recognize, started becoming aware of Project Paperclip, and he speaks about how the U.S. Marshals stormed his job.
Mr. Jesse Stallings, I left there wondering what I had just interviewed for, because they didn't outline my job description. They only were interested in how much money I wanted. That's it. And they wouldn't tell me what my job was going to be. And I didn't even know what I was interviewing for. They told me to show up for work Monday morning, I did. They didn't even have an office for me. And so I politely asked Al Pittman what I'd be doing. He said, "You're going to be in charge of advertising." Oh, okay. That's a lot of money to pay an advertising manager. That's okay. He said, "No, you're director now, and we're going to promote you to vice president." Of course, that's kind of like a bank. Everybody's a vice president. In the airline business, if you're in upper management, everybody's a vice president. There's no great distinction. So I said, "Well, that's great." He said, "Well, I'll introduce you to your employees." Well, I worked for Capitol. And then one day, federal marshals descended upon the building in 1976. I was going to Washington to a big gala affair for the Travel and Tourism. Donna Tuttle, who was undersecretary under Jimmy Carter, had invited me up, and I was being honored for my contributions to U.S. travel and tourism. I thought it was kind of nice until the U.S. Marshals came in, and they briefly asked me, by holding up a paperclip, what did I know about this? Well, I'm not real slow, but I told them, I said, I use them every day. I said, I got big ones, little ones, and I said, we've also got plastic ones. Well, oddly enough, he said, that's all I need to know. I thought, wow. I had some friends of mine that were U.S. Marshals, and that was back in the days when all they did was transport prisoners. And I used to play poker with them. That's when I lived in Atlanta working for Ampex. So I knew where their hot buttons were and what to say and what not to say. And so I asked the guy, I said, this is not consistent with the guy's level of intelligence. Why aren't you asking me about paperclips, man? Why don't you ask me about the real meat and potatoes, like my fountain pen? I said, what is this all about? He said, you're all need to know, and that's all you need to know. He said, "You obviously don't know anything." I said, "You got that."
I wanted to share that for this reason, because it seems like there's, and I like to think this is what gives me hope for the future, is that there are some good guys trying to investigate this stuff, and that has been going on for a long time, that there's this, not a war, but how would you explain it? I don't know, like this underground civil war of the agencies where one is trying to stop the other from wreaking havoc all over the whole world. And what do you think about, is this going on, and has that been going on that long?
From my point of view,
Yeah.
the intelligence communities are quite divided, but they're compartmentalized anyway, because everybody's operating on a need to know, and this part doesn't know what this part's doing, and so it allows for the criminal activity very easy to go on right alongside of genuine people who are attempting to do good in the world, and are dedicated to humanity and our country. So there's definitely that aspect. And Mark's case, Mark was, it meant he wore every hat: FBI, CIA, NSA, Secret Service, Treasury, whatever he needed to be is exactly what he could be, because his clearance was so high and his level was so high. So he saw a lot. He saw the good and bad in all of it, and he saw the interagency issues and everything else. And he also was aware of a level of global intelligence where Mark always said wisdom outthinks a criminal mind every time, and it does. Wisdom, because it has the soul, it has the whole expanded thought, and it definitely outthinks that linear criminal mind. And there's so many people in intelligence that have that wisdom, who are concerned about what's happening to humanity, who are very concerned with the erosion of free thought and the imposing of mind control. They're concerned about this handful, this cabal, this dark cabal that's been in control for so long, the puppet masters, so to speak, and wanted to expose them and expose this new world order. There's a huge global intelligence effort that wanted people like President Trump in office to help expose what's going on to the rest of the population, because people need to see it. It's part of a genuine great awakening on a global scale. The people have to be on board. Otherwise, what would it matter? It would just be someone higher up over the puppet masters, and you still got the same pyramid of power that, we've got to reach the critical mass. We've got to wake the people up and let them know. And as people are waking up, all they're seeing is the dark side for a moment. They need to, stop a minute, look further, and realize that we are by far the majority. Good people are the vast majority in this world. And this dark cabal, they are not like us, and they do not like us. And there's only a handful of them, but they have been manipulating minds for generations now, and they needed to be exposed. They've been exposed, and it's because of this higher level of intelligence and wisdom that knows, like I know from my life's experience, without free thought, there's no free will. With no free will, there's no soul expression. Without soul expression, we lose our moral compass. Without that soul expression, we have the strength of the human spirit, that innate power of love, that infinite source of power that we all have. The reason why we're here, our life's purpose, what we are as human beings, and what our mission is here on this earth, and it takes us from that. That's what mind control is for, because these perpetrators feed off of negativity. They feed off of hatred, fear, division, and control. They want this low vibration, negative energy force. That's their energy source. That's what they feed off of. And that's what they're trying to make all of us, because what they fear the most is the strength of the human spirit and the power of love. That's such a high vibration. It's where we win, where they lose. It's why they are using mind control in an effort to keep us from thinking, to express our free will, soul expression, strength of spirit, life's purpose, and reason why we're here. So ultimately, it becomes a spiritual battle on that when we look at it from that higher up level. And it's such an important point of view to look at, because when we see it from there, we realize, oh, we've got the victory within us all along. We just forgot to claim it. We just forgot to use it. We just forgot to live it. And so this highest level of intelligence is wanting us to remember that we have all the power. And that takes exposing the puppet masters. It takes exposing this dark cabal. And as people are waking up and seeing it, it seems like the whole world has just gone dark, when in fact, this isn't anything new. What's new is we're seeing it. And once we're seeing it, it's the first step towards positive, necessary change. And knowing that there was a level of intelligence working toward this goal generations ago is very encouraging to see it still gathering more and more momentum. Now it's just a matter of, like Mark would say back when, the bad guys already lost, and they just don't know it yet. The good guys won. And so we just need to claim our victory. And in so many ways, that's really what humanity needs to do, is just remember who they are, why they're here, reclaim and retain their free thought. And ultimately, it's a evolutionary time that we're living in. Wow, what an amazing time to be alive.
It is, and you're very optimistic about it, more so than I expected. I knew you'd be positive. I knew things are different at this point in your life than ever before, but you really have a positive outlook on the future. I see that. I want to focus on all of your story for those who are unfamiliar with it, and hopefully they can go pick up your books and that. But I did one more video, kind of leads up to that, if I may.
International business deals. In 3 weeks, we put together $31 million worth of business with the Chinese. And I was, and with Alex Houston, 51% owners of a company called Uniphase Corporation. I didn't want to socialize with Alex Houston. I hadn't met his wife or his daughter. And then when I went back to China for the final deals, and we were building a huge plant over there, 65,000 square foot plant to manufacture these capacitors, I was approached by a Chinese intelligence officer. Oh, I failed to mention that my partner in Hong Kong was a fellow by the name of William Yoon. He was an arms dealer, major for the Chinese. And he owned a ship line. He distributed silkworm missiles all over the world. He was a nice guy, in spite of his work, and I trusted him. So when I was approached by a Chinese intelligence officer, this was in 1987, and this guy told me that he needed to speak with me because there was a serious problem. I thought that serious problem was I was fixing to be thrown out of that company, because now that they had literally all my knowledge and everything that they wanted, then they no longer had any need for me. But that was not to be the case. This Chinese intelligence officer began unfolding some things that I had never seen before. See, I was raised in an upper middle class family. Some would call it wealthy. I wasn't familiar with incest. I wasn't familiar with horrific tortures and child abuse to that nature. My father was very abusive, but nothing to compare to what I would later learn. I knew a little bit about the Heinrich Himmler studies and what had gone on in Nazi Germany with those people. But I just didn't equate it as going on in the United States. And this Chinese intelligence officer began showing me my classified files, still classified. Still classified. Now this really scared me because you got to remember, you can take the boy out of the CIA, but you can't take the CIA out of the boy. And I was going to run straight home and tell, which I did. But let me tell you the rest of it. He also began impressing me with some of the most horrible stuff I had ever seen in my life. He explained to me that Alex Houston, my business partner, had to be removed from the company because he was involved in child pornography. White slavery. He just said slavery. And by the way, child pornography is punishable by death in China, first offense. A lot of things are, but they particularly don't like that one. He was also engaged working for the Central Intelligence Agency. This fellow had indeed shown me some of the most horrific stuff I can imagine. He showed me a picture of Alex Houston having sex with a small child. And that child turned out to be Haitian. He explained to me that I had to get rid of Alex Houston. I said, fine, I would. So I did. I went back to the States, and I told the Chinese if they were sincere, they'd give me the money to buy him out. They did. And I bought him out. And I went to see some friends of mine. Because this white slavery thing had other words like mind control attached to it. And he also told me, this Chinese intelligence officer, that Alex Houston was engaged in money laundering and illicit drugs, and it went all the way to the White House. I went back and began quizzing some old friends in the intelligence community who were still active, and they validated it for me. Well, by this time, I'd met Cathy and her daughter. I mean, we're talking a major airhead. Major. And by the way, no one escapes mind control. That's called abuse. Lots of people escape abuse. Mind control is just that. It's mind control. You don't know that you're being controlled. Of course, Cathy didn't even know her own name. She didn't know how old she was. She didn't know where she'd been in her travels. So I was convinced that I would get them out and get them into therapy and go back to China and do my thing. So I asked some people that knew, and they gave me coach keys and triggers. I applied them. They worked. I got her out, her and her daughter. And guess what? Everything in my life flipped upside down. All my bank accounts were gone. Everything that I had, gone.
I'm sure he didn't mean airhead in the way of dummy. He meant you clearly had something going on. He knew that you were mind controlled. Is this okay to talk about what's his Alex Houston? He passed away. Is he the Alex Houston with the Elmer puppet?
Yes. Yeah, he was a ventriloquist stage hypnotist in the country music industry.
And he wasn't very funny either.
No.
I saw his
No,
acts.
he did
That's
a lot
not good.
of pedophile jokes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a clip. Would it be inappropriate to share this one joke so that John and Greg can see how obvious he was?
Yeah, sure. That'd be
One
great.
last thing. And this is the guy, right, Cathy?
Yeah.
All right. I wrote this joke down 3 times and I still don't fully get it. So I'm sure you guys will be able to inform me what he's talking about.
Is that it? No, I don't think so. Elmer, I think you find people like poetry that has a message to it. Now, here's a little toast I think illustrates my point pretty well because it has a moral overtone to it. Now, that sounds interesting. It goes like this, okay? Here's to the man who kisses his wife, and he kisses his wife alone, for there's many a man kissing another man's wife when he should be kissing his own.
Oh, now that's heavy stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I get the idea now.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Like what?
Here's to the man who rocks his child and rocks his child alone. There's many a man rocking another man's child when he thinks he's rocking his own.
That's in front. That's kids. That's kids in the audience. So they don't even. I don't even know why they're laughing. I don't even know. I didn't even know what it meant.
It's not.
How is that even?
The
Why would
kids
they
don't
laugh?
know what that
It
means.
must have been a sign that said "laugh now" or something.
Yeah.
All I
Probably.
can think of.
So
Probably,
he's not
you know.
funny, and he's pretty obviously was sick. I am curious how he said he was going to go back and he was going to get you and your daughter away from Alex, and obviously he did later say that his life was no longer the same after doing that. His bank accounts were drained, and you guys were running all over the country, is what I heard. But I'm curious how he approached you. How did he meet you?
The first thing they did was drain his bank accounts
Wow.
because they said like a satanic reversal, would take your life savings for saving a life. And that's what they did. And he had over $3 million in the bank at the time, which he had earned, on his level of intelligence. Mark just said, you just made a big mistake. You backed a man in a corner who has nothing left to lose. Again, wisdom outthinks a criminal mind every time. So it was just that much more reason to do, to expose them. So they made it was difficult. We were literally dodging bullets, and the access denied for reasons of national security details our journey through the corrupted justice and mental health system, trying to help my daughter, how we survived to become whistleblowers, how we made it against the odds, and what we were able to accomplish, and everything. So it's amazing story, but I think our love story is one that is significantly profound, and calling me an airhead in that one clip is like,
I was wondering. I saw you smile when he said that.
I squirmed a little when he said that.
Yeah, I know. When I started healing, I loved Mark so much because he was we were safe for the first time. He was helping us in every way. I thought he must be a god or something to be so vastly different from everything I knew, because by the time he rescued my daughter and me, I didn't know good people existed in the world. Wow. So he was absolutely amazing to me. And I saw his animals loved him. And I'd never seen that either, because people who abuse children abuse animals and vice versa. So it was so pervasive, abusing animals around me and using that as a trauma too. But Mark's animals loved him and they trusted him. And he had fox and raccoons, and he had all kinds of pets, and every one of them would just go run to him and hug him and love him. And it was like through them, I was able to sense that I could trust Mark. And once I started trusting Mark, I was able to apply the information that he was handing me that in order to heal. And as I started healing, of course, I was so in love with him, but he wouldn't have anything to do with me. And he said, you've got to know who you are first. You got to heal first. You have to know who you are in order to have something to give in a relationship.
I remember that. I remember that from the book, but I don't remember where you were when he did come and say, "Hey, I'm rescuing you." I don't remember that from the book. Where were you living, and how did he actually get you in the car? That's what I'm missing.
Well, I was with Alex Houston at that time, and I was going to be transferred over to, I was going to be killed because I was turning 30, and I was to be killed at Bohemian Grove. And that was, and my daughter was going to be turned over to the Epstein of the time, the guy who had all the blackmail tapes and everything else, a guy named Michael Dante. And Mark knew all that was about to transpire from his level of intelligence, and he just, you know, intercepted while I was being transferred. So
did you know you were about to be killed, or did you find that out later?
on a level I knew, but it wasn't like I had any conscious thought or could do anything about it. I couldn't think to save myself. I couldn't think to escape, like he had said. But it was definitely something that was, you know, unfolding at that time when Mark.
So you were 30. How old was Kelly at that time?
Kelly was like 8, and then she was still young. And when Mark came and rescued us, at the time, Alex Houston was in Boys Town in Nebraska, where they abused the children and used the MK Ultra and everything. I think Franklin Cover Up does a lot of explanation on that, but he was in Boys Town. He actually had the key to Boys Town hanging on his wall because he was there so often. But since Mark knew he was gone, that was when he came in and rescued Kelly and me and all of our farm animals, our dogs and horses and guineas and chickens and cows. I mean, he rescued everything, which was really impressive to us. So that was beautiful. And he took us to safety at that point. And it was a while before I could gain conscious thought and have enough awareness. But I began healing right away. Because of being safe for the first time. So it was a beautiful experience.
So did he accomplish this rescue all by himself, or did he have a team that helped him?
Well, he had a lot of people behind him that were supporting him, and but he did it himself. It was a physical rescue in that regard. And like I said, he said that, you know, I needed to heal before, you know, so that I could have something to give in a relationship. And that was a great motive for me to heal really fast, you know. So I used that. I applied the methods for healing that he taught me, which number one was writing memory out by hand, because the memory was starting to leak. Since I was turning age 30, the neuron pathways were starting to open up. Because I was safe for the first time, the neuron pathways were opening up in my brain, and memory was leaking out. And I would get these memory flashes. And he told me, he said, make a note of those and then write them out. And taught me what questions to ask, you know, like, how did I get there? Where did I go after? What do they say? Who is saying it? You know, and like that. So I would write it out, because when the very act of moving a pen activates the logic critical analysis part of the brain. So it takes the emotionally incomprehensible repressed trauma and shifts it over to logic, where it's written out on paper and then consciously seen. And all of a sudden the healing is happening on all levels at once. So
do you still have all these notes?
Yes, I do. I have most of them. A lot of them were confiscated in FBI raids, but definitely have many of them still. And a lot of the evidences we were able to keep in spite of all the raids.
That leads to the next question. When were these FBI raids? When did they all happen?
Oh, just intermittently. They started right away and just continued. Yeah. And like when my daughter was in custody of the state of Tennessee and the so-called Child Protective Services, she got thrust into that corrupted system. And the pictures that she would draw me, or pictures I would have of her, the FBI would come in and just take all that, you know, off the walls and off, you know, where I had them hanging up or whatever. It's just ridiculous what they take.
I have a question about just the duration and when Alex, how he obtained you, or when the abuse started. How old were you at that?
Yeah,
time?
how'd you come to meet Alex?
How'd you come to meet him?
Well, I think it's important to know that since I'd been born into the multi-generational incest-based family. It's what made me a target for MK Ultra mind control. My father's sexual abuse included ritual abuse. My mother's sexual abuse included being trafficked to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge.
So it started with the
It's
Masons.
where the local politicians. In that particular case, it's where they had the secret information on the formula for mind control, and we're using that. So
do you see your parents as victims or as perpetrators, or both?
I understand them, but they are definitely perpetrators. My father, especially, when his sexual abuse extended into child pornography, and also trafficking me to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge. The local politician that I'd been trafficked to since I was just a little toddler approached my father and told him he could receive immunity from prosecution if he would agree to sell me into MK Ultra mind control. And my father did. And that was, it shows how corrupted our courts were, even back in 1960, to allow for the proliferation of pedophilia, because it is a mind control agenda, and national security can be evoked on any case, which is what the FBI consistently does, to allow for this child sex trafficking. Well, the sex trafficking of me extended to Mackinac Island, Michigan, which was the Epstein Island of its time. It's where the governor's mansion is located. And at the time, it was Governor George Romney, Mitt Romney's father, who was the governor then, and he was actively involved in MK Ultra of individuals and of obviously the state, but aiming towards the New World Order agenda. And it was at Mackinac Island, Michigan, that I met Pierre Trudeau when I was 9 years old, and later, and who I was sexually assaulted by. Of course, that's Justin Trudeau's father. Who knows if it's biological or not?
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Which one?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, because
we don't even know.
Yeah, Maggie Trudeau. Maggie Trudeau was a presidential model MK Ultra mind control slave. So there's no telling who she was prostituted to and who Justin's biological father really is. But nevertheless, it was Pierre Trudeau that was raising him. And it was there that I met my owner in MK Ultra mind control, U.S. Senator Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd became my owner when I was 13 years old. And as my owner, he directed my activities, decided who I would be prostituted to and when, which black budget operations I'd be used in, who I would be exposed to. And he also determined who my handlers would be.
Wow.
So this was your original question on the handlers. And the first handler he appointed was Wayne Cox, who was an occult serial killer, CIA assassin who was working Bill Clinton's MENA cocaine operations back in the late 70s. So he was my first handler, and an extreme trauma base, preparing me for further MK Ultra mind control, where I would be used on the White House, Pentagon level consistently. And I ended up on the political level because of the politicians I had been prostituted to as a little child. The one who gave my father immunity from prosecution was Gerald Ford. As Gerald Ford's political career escalated, so too did my victimization, until I was used on that level. But they wanted me to have more trauma, so they had sent me to Wayne Cox first. That was under Senator Byrd's orders. And then he ordered that I be transferred to Alex Houston, who, again, the ventriloquist stage hypnotist in the country music industry. The country music industry was completely saturated with MK Ultra and CIA cocaine operations. Eventually, the Nashville country music industry was transferred to Branson, Missouri, which was closer to Bill Clinton's MENA operations. So that's why that ended up over there. It was all part of CIA cocaine ops. So Byrd wanted me.
That's true to this day, that Branson is a hub for
the country,
MK Ultra in the country industry?
All entertainment industries are. So, we just need to consider that.
Branson's just one of many.
into the equation. And Bird wanted me in the country music industry because he worked the Grand Ole Opry. He fancied himself a fiddler and played at the Grand Ole Opry at times. So I ended up working in the country music industry as a means of travel, because that brought us throughout the United States, in and out of the Caribbean, Mexico, Canada, and transporting CIA, cocaine, or me being prostituted to whoever they determined at that time. So that's how Alex Houston came into the picture at all, because of it was just a
The
moment.
Grand Ole Opry. That's where he was
thanks
opening.
for clarifying that. And that sick joke he just did. He
It makes it all the worse.
Well, it makes. I mean, anybody to even say a joke like that, has such confidence, and to them it's funny.
Because he knows he can get away with it.
Absolutely disgusting. And then that whole Epstein thing, the fact that, what happened to him in jail and everything else, and people like look the other way it's so obvious that something nefarious and protected is going on at the highest levels, period. That's the most recent example of that.
Yeah, see, please understand, John is just getting this information for the first time, so he's
we're learning things that we didn't know
like
before,
Neo
too.
on Matrix.
I had anecdotal information. Like I had stepkids in California, and they spent the night, and they were 3 and 6 at the time. Spent the night with a family, and they had boys that were 3 and 6, and there was an incident where. Basically the one kid, my stepson, went to the police. I said, okay, we're having the police show up there. I'm not, and so they did. And then he had an interview, and the kid was saying like stuff that was obvious that the kid who did it was abused. And the police knew the father, and apparently the grandfather was a known pedophile, and they just snuffed it out like nothing happened. It was like, and that's at that tiny little, and this is probably, I mean, it probably goes on way more than people think, and right in front of people. That was an example. I'm like, why the hell aren't you investigating this? Oh no, they saw it on HBO. It's what he alluded to, and I'm like, what? So we transferred my stepkid out of the classroom and said no interaction whatsoever. But the kid was like, all the telltale signs, very aggressive, very self-harming, and it's just like, come on, somebody's got to help this kid. What the hell? And probably they could fit into this category where, like, not only did they know, they hid it and were sharing. Who knows? That's just so appalling.
Yeah, having been around Senator Byrd so much, it's important to note that he opened up an office in the FBI building in the 80s to set up the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children as a catchment for human trafficking and child sex trafficking. It was to put them back into the system, and the system's been corrupted for a very, very long time. The FBI is very complicit in all of this. But when we start looking at the structure, it's easier to understand how that corruption has been permeating our society for so long, because you get one corrupt head of the FBI at the very top, and then all of the FBI agents march to orders and do what they're told. And then the FBI has authority over all local law enforcement. They can come in on any case, invoke national security. They come in on any case and take it over. And then subsequently, we got this one corrupt head of the FBI influencing all level of law enforcement, except of course for our sheriffs, who are constitutional, hopefully, and don't have to follow orders of the FBI and the federal government. So it's the way that has been deliberately structured for so long shows how pervasive this pedophile agenda has been. The pedophile agenda is a mind control agenda, and it's one that's just being openly pushed in the schools now. You know, we're seeing it everywhere. And they're trying to act like it's something normal when it's not. It is a mind control agenda. There's a lot of people who have been affected adversely. You know, it's got to stop. Awareness is the first step towards that positive, necessary change. That's why I'm so happy for this discussion here today, because we get to, you know, bring this information to light in a comprehensive way to let people know exactly how pervasive it really is.
Yes.
There's so many questions I have for you.
Go ahead, Greg.
But I wanted to, the thing that grabbed me the most of all the things that you've said in the last was the talk about George Romney, was the governor. And I think of Mitt Romney, obviously, and I just looked him up, and sure enough, he was born in Detroit. And he's about a decade older than you are. But I'm just wondering now, because this was going on clearly in Michigan, and Gerald Ford was part of it, and George Romney was part of it, obviously was this is my question, was Mitt Romney, I no doubt he was like Bush Jr. I mean, he was abused, but he was abused with the intention of making him someone that they could use, obviously. Is it, or that's my guess. I just want some confirmation. Did you know any of that personally, or you just knew of it?
I do. I know that that Bush Jr. was an absolute Manchurian candidate from
I'm thinking Mitt Romney was too.
Presidency. And Mitt, I'm not sure what his was, because sometimes the lineage just passes down the propensity for controlling other people and for the, you know, pedophile agenda or whatever. I don't know if his was inherent. I don't know if he was like his mother or his father. You know, the point being that there was no good way out of that one, you know. So could he heal? I don't know. Maybe someday he'll remember who he is and why he's here, and you know, just expose the whole mess. But I don't know if he can think to do that. It's hard to tell. Mind control is such a sliding scale, you know, and I don't know where he falls in it, but he was certainly exposed to a lot of MK Ultra one way or the other.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. How does somebody know if, I mean, all right, so we've all been influenced, mind controlled by the media and everything ever since childhood, education. But how does somebody know that, you know, that they're out, I don't know, assassinating foreign leaders or in prostitution without, the knowledge? How does somebody know? Is there something in the back of their mind that triggers them? I mean, maybe it's Greg. Maybe it's, I mean, how does somebody know? I mean, is there like a way, you know, write out your whole diary of your life just as an exercise? I mean, there's got to be some way. I mean, you didn't know until
I didn't know. And when I started writing out my memory, I was appalled at what I had been forced to do under mind control. I was appalled at what the plan was for all of humanity. I was devastated by it. And I told Mark, I said, I can't live with myself after what I've been forced to do. And he said, you're not responsible for what your torturers do under mind control. Your abusers are, and they need to be held accountable for their actions. And he said, but now that you're aware, you are responsible for all of your actions going forward. So that was like a great thing to me. Responsibility, the ability to respond, the ability to consciously choose, you know. And I decided I would do everything out of love and true to soul and make sure that I was never manipulated again. And that's the knowledge that's our defense against mind control. And it's something that we all can evolve with. But as for being able to choose under mind control, there is no choice under mind control, not the level that I was under. Because if there had been a choice, I would have protected my daughter. Yeah. That was my main thing. I didn't have an ability to protect myself, and I couldn't protect my own child. And that is the greatest violation against our innate being and a mother's love. Yeah. It was so much so that it was the number one trauma used on me to make me do things, like it'd be like, if you do this, your daughter will be fine, or whatever. Otherwise, she's gonna get the abuse. And they told her the same thing. We found out in later years they had told her, well, if you do it, we won't hurt your mom. So it was just, we were used against each other in that regard. But I was never able to protect her effectively and get her out of the situation. Instead, I was just taking more torture. That was the best I could do to protect her. So there's no rationalization, there's no logical thought, there's no free thought happening at all under the level of MK Ultra.
And these pedophiles, I mean, that's exactly what they do. Or prostitution rings, they beat, torture them, then they can into submission. Some people can do it as, I saw a documentary, it was actually based in Toledo, believe it or not, where they had this prostitution ring with 14-year-old girls, and they would have the pimps, modern day pimps, just torture them for months. And then they would ship them around at truck stops to abuse them. And they had plenty of opportunity to escape, but they were so broke down and tortured and mentally abused that they literally couldn't do that. And this goes on in modern day with terrorist propaganda over and over and over again. And it's just the profound abuse is just, I can't even fathom it. I don't know how you even survived it, to be honest.
I'm so fortunate to have survived it. It's a miracle that I'm here. It really is, to have survived that, and then to have been able to heal and speak out and survive speaking out.
It's remarkable.
It's been quite a journey. It really is, and I feel so blessed because, as long as I'm still here, I'm going to continue to live my life's purpose. I must still have purpose left, or I wouldn't be here. As far as I don't know how I made it this far, but I think an important message in that is how much mind control can affect our choices, if we have any choice at all. And the kind of mind control that was unleashed on the global population with mind control masked as a virus has left a whole lot of people feeling horrified at the fact that they had their children masked up and limited oxygen to their brain necessary for critical analysis free thought, that they had them get the injection and seeing the results of what that injection did. And then they feel guilty, and it's like they need to understand how that mind control worked on that decision that they made. And their abusers, all of our abusers, need to be held accountable for their crimes against humanity and the actions that they imposed. And once people can heal enough to realize that, these perpetrators, they're not going to be able to get away with it any longer.
Cathy, frankly, a lot of the people who abused you are dead now. I mean, are any of them still alive?
Clintons, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's still, a good many that are still alive and need to be held accountable for their crimes against humanity. It's ridiculous. Look what happened with Haiti and the Clintons, and and even in that clip from that so long ago, Mark talking about the picture of Alex Houston with the boy from the Haitian boy in '87. He had seen that photographic evidence. It's because they were already doing that in Haiti in the '80s. It's in my testimony for Congress, Transformation of America. That information was validated. Unfortunately, national security was invoked on it, and secrets, that kind of suppression of truth, that kind of censorship does take its toll, because if awareness had risen, maybe we could have stopped all this a long time ago. But at least people get it now, and at least the truth is getting out there, and the positive change is finally occurring.
Now, there was some criticism years ago about Mark, and I kind of saw through it because I believed him instantly. I just watched him speak. I didn't know him, but I believed him. And so there was a lot of other people suspicious of him. And this, I suppose, is understandable. But he defended Henry Kissinger, or at least the claim was that. I don't care what Mark thought of Henry Kissinger. What do you know about him? He's passed away, but what did you know about him, if anything at all?
Henry Kissinger?
Yeah.
Was very much a part of Gerald Ford's cabinet. You know, when you look at Gerald Ford's cabinet, you see the same old perpetrators over and over. You know, he had George Bush, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, and Jack Valenti, head of the Motion Picture Association of America, was his press secretary. Henry Kissinger, you know, it's anybody can research it for themselves. Ford and Kissinger put together a depopulation agenda while Ford was in office. You know, this has been going on for such a long, long time. So I have nothing good to say about Henry Kissinger and all that he was in the peripheral of my experience, but I did not have personal experience with him. So he's not in, you know, my testimony, because my testimony is exactly only those that I had experience with. So,
but Mark wouldn't have defended him. Mark wouldn't have defended him, though. Or I'm just wondering, because this is out there on the internet, and so I just want to see.
Oh, they said Mark defended
Kissinger? Oh yeah.
Oh, there's so much misinformation.
That there's no evidence at all that Henry Kissinger was involved with pedophilia or anything. That's what they're saying. Mark said.
I don't
believe it, but I just want to clarify.
Imagine that for 1 minute, because there's too much that he and I individually knew and discussed. So that doesn't make any sense.
And I just wanted to have that clarified.
But there's information out there on me too.
Oh yeah, of course, that would be expected, right?
Yeah. They like it's being censored from YouTube for medical misinformation, for saying people can heal from mind control. I'm living proof of that, you know, but it doesn't matter.
So for me, I'm gonna have to see on this editing. I'm probably gonna edit this video into a bunch of clips and somehow send them independently over social media, just to avoid all the good content's in that, but I can't include in this. So figure out. We're looking to open up to Rumble and some other places that allow us, you know, as the podcast grows. We're just starting out on YouTube, and I like it, but we gotta abide by their rules. But we can put the clip somewhere else.
A new direction, Jeff?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. In a lot of your work, and I just listened to PTSD Time to Heal just yesterday, and and in there it must have been every 5 minutes or so, you'd say, be sure to write it down. Have a pad with you. So I thought, okay, I better start doing that. But anyway, so my question was, you mentioned several times in all of your talking about harmonic abuse.
Yes,
like certain frequencies are going to have this or that influence. And there was a picture in one of them, you know, talking about the 440 versus the 432. And I'm kind of ambivalent about that, whether, like, you know, somehow 432 is raising the vibrations and 440 is bad. I don't know what your stand is on that. And I'm not 100% sure, because you didn't really specify. What do you mean by harmonic abuse? If you don't mind going into that a little bit without getting too scientific.
There's a technological aspect to manipulating the mind. In when trauma occurs, you know, when the sexual abuse and all like that, the brain automatically shuts down neuron pathways around it and represses that memory. So it's the way our brains respond to trauma. And then healing from it requires opening those neuron pathways, you know, which is why writing it out works so well. Well, with the harmonics, it vibrates the neuron pathways in the brain, and that vibration can compartmentalize memory. And I think a good example of that would be the song. Somebody will hear a song and they say, oh, we fell in love to that song, and then they just have kind of a squish moment about it, you know, because they feel in that again, because of that's the way the vibration frequency affects the neuron pathways, and how that memory is then stimulated, or or whatever. Those harmonics are used in music to drive in adverse lyrics. We need to be mindful of whatever we allow to go into our brains, whether it's music or whether it's coming through television, computerization, video games, no matter what it is, the free.
Right.
Definitely very deliberately pervasive now.
So you mentioned in a couple of your other videos about music, and you said it's usually the lyrics aren't the worst part of it. It's the vibe. You said it was the harmonics in the music. And so I guess I feel that way in the sense that, I listen to some songs and I don't care about the words. It just feels evil. Just the whole way the song is coming together. And I get bad vibes, good vibrations, bad vibrations. And maybe that's what you're just talking about. It's just trying to put a word to it and calling it harmonics. Is that what you mean? Or did you mean something else?
Yeah, that, and we do need to pay attention to the lyrics too, because otherwise they can go in subliminally on that. And
well, they say communication is 7% verbal and 93% everything else. And so maybe that's kind of what you're saying too. The music is the same way. So
we need to pay attention to the effects of frequency around us. And, it's even important just to shut off all devices for a while, get outside, listen to nature, breathe in the air. It's such a completely different stimulation that way, to hear the birds and to actually feel the wind on your skin and feel the earth beneath your feet. Take off your shoes, actually feel it. It's so important because we get bombarded with so many electronic frequencies these days, and we need to take care of ourselves and keep a better balance.
I have a question about that. So all of my family right now is sick, and some of it really bad, and I'm fine because I'm the only one that works in the garden. I'm digging up in the soil and everything, and I try to get my son out, like, here, come turn this compost pile just to get some of this other germs on you. It's like, it's healing. But have you heard anything about, you're talking about harmonics, but anything about, have you gotten into the grounding or anything like that with just kind of, have you heard of this? Greg, you're familiar with it, right? Where you just bury your feet in the ground,
earthing,
earthing and that. Have you heard any of this, Cathy?
Well, I'm very familiar with it, but I don't know it by that
okay.
word.
Yeah, so they're finding.
Yeah,
so for Native Indians, when they went, some cultures, when they would get pregnant, they'd bury the woman, up to her waist or something, just to kind of prepare for birth. It somehow had some positive effect of, I don't know, detoxing. And I've seen video where they're actually they're filming when the person is, I don't know, feet buried under the ground, and all of these molecules and stuff are moving this way, and they shut it off and they stop. So these things are pushed through our body, toxins and stuff. So anyway, it was a little off subject, but I was wondering if you heard of that.
But yeah, I know when I go hiking and I don't have earphones in, and I feel
just get rid of all
every single time, because you get acutely aware of all the sounds, opposed to modern world as you tune everything out. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to pay attention to anything. So in nature, at least for me, I go hiking, I can hear the crunching, I can hear the wind, because you could be attacked by an animal. I think it's like a reset of your brain. And if I don't do it at least a couple times a week, I'm miserable.
It's a soul soothing experience. You have to do it regularly. Exactly. That's why I'm always out in the garden. You're out in the woods, so you got nature sounds when you open the door, or do you have a highway? Because I got a highway too over there. So do you have just all nature around you, or is it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just perfect for me. I love being out in nature, and the gardening is important, and getting your hands in the dirt and your feet in the dirt. I think is a very healthy thing. It's a whole lot better than what happened 2020 when everybody got, hand sanitizer everywhere.
Yeah, no, that's the wrong approach.
And they closed the national parks. It was insane. Can't go outside. Let's put everybody in a confined area and wonder why it spreads.
Yeah, I know. It was so ridiculous. the illogic of it all, but people were just following it because they weren't thinking free. But I think ultimately, after a while, it wore on them. But getting out in nature is something that I always encourage.
Yeah.
It's important. So is good nutrition.
Yes.
You know, we've got to have good nutrition to feed our brains. That's why our food is taxed so bad, and you know, it starves our brains. The same with water. Sleep, food, and water deprivation are components of MK Ultra mind control. So we need to make sure we get plenty of fresh, good water, and without the fluorides and all that, and good organic food. It's always good to grow our own, you know, and plenty of rest, plenty of good sleep, and time to sleep, because people are having to work so many jobs. This slave society agenda that keeps them busy, where they work 9 to 5 and 5 to 9, and you know, don't have time to sleep or pay attention to the kids or eat right. Or, you know, we got to slow all that down and get back to the quality of life again, and make sure that we get plenty of good
Yeah,
sleep.
because you got a dual income. A lot of families have dual income families, and they're both working 50 hours a week. What you could survive on in the 60s and 70s off one income.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, geez, let's get everybody in the marketplace. Well, what does that mean? More taxes for the government. And now everybody's working. Yay, I feel so liberated. Wait, what?
Cathy, I had a very important question pop up. It's something I've wondered for many years, and honestly, I don't know if it's a false memory or not. But did you once say something negative or of having experience with the Institutes of Achievement of Human Potential in Philadelphia?
Me?
Are you familiar with the organization?
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, thank God. This is good. All right,
I have no idea.
Because I go to my
I
wife.
don't know what you're talking about.
That was the whole. All right, that's where I take my son, and I believe that they're doing amazing things. And I came back from it, and I don't know if it was just the whole experience was mind blowing or what, but I have a handicapped son. So I came back to my wife, and I said, but I think I remember Cathy saying that she was taken there or something that you had some experience there. She's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, okay, but I always had it in the back of my mind.
Listen to your wife.
It could be a false memory. These things happen, because I was really traumatized by my son, you know, his ordeal. So, and she has some false memories too. I'm really glad you cleared that one up, because I really love the place. But some of the stuff they do is different and unconventional, but it's not, you know, criminal and torturous. So I'm so relieved.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll keep my son going there.
Wow.
Okay, well, I was just, you know, I just right before we got on with you, I watched a recent video by Kay Griggs, who was known for her involvement or her knowledge about mind control and so on with the military. And the guy did not show her face because apparently she was concerned, you know, not to be seen. And you're obviously showing your face. You're not too concerned about that. So my question is, are you at all worried? I mean, that somebody's going to try to come out and get you? And I also wanted to ask, what happened? How's your daughter doing? Your daughter Kelly, she turned 30 around 2010. She went through a time where things were difficult. So those are two unrelated questions, but I wanted to just quickly ask.
Well, my daughter Kelly's doing very well, and she really doesn't care to have her face out there. She's more like a cheerleader behind me going, "You go, mom, you know, and it's so brilliant in her own right, and really has some amazing information to share that's so vastly different from mine. She also wrote a beautiful article that I posted on my locals channel about reconnecting in a disconnected world. That's just genius, you know, that is only she can do and only she can say. She'd rather be in nature, you know, that's definitely her thing, and being with animals and working and growing things, you know. I mean, she's just amazing in that regard. She's not one for social media and that aspect of life. She cherishes her freedom like so much.
Good.
And so I respect that and honor that. But she's not scared either. It's just that she doesn't want the hassle. So
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
It makes sense to me. And no, I do not live in fear. Fear is, that's their vibration. They got enough of that from me. They generate fear all the time, and they're not going to get any more of that from me. So I'm just going to live the love I am,
That's great.
stay in my high vibration, and and I'm still here. So whatever, it doesn't mean that there's not hassle and stuff, because I have certainly endured that lately, or the censorship and the harassments and the nonsense like that. But anytime something like that would happen, Mark would say, well, we're obviously doing something right. Somebody's scared. So, I just take that attitude and I don't get scared. And again, wisdom outthinks a criminal mind every time. So just staying a step ahead by staying focused on my purpose and what I want to accomplish keeps me going. So I'm not scared.
Thank you.